Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, student officers, delegates, and admin staff. Welcome to the 49th annual session of the Hague International Model United Nations. My name is Patrick Shepherd, and I serve as the President of the General Assembly. Your attention for the flag parade displaying all the delegations represented at THIMUN 2017. Special honour to welcome Mr. Willem Post, Special Advisor to the Mayor of the Municipality of The Hague. Mr. Post, you now have the floor.
Very warm welcome here in The Hague. I'm from The Hague, so I'm very proud of my own city, The Hague. Well, this is a rather famous convention centre. Not too long ago we had here the Nuclear Security Summit with I think 80 or 90 world leaders, including the Chinese president, the Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs, President Obama. It seems a long time ago that he was president in the United States, don't you think so? You've come here to the Hague International Model United Nations, an annual event which has taken place without interruption for almost half a century. The Hague is very proud of that, as you can imagine. The UN city of The Hague is, of course, just the right place to hold THIMUN. And that brings me to the THIMUN theme. Very actual, of course. Borders in a globalizing world. A well-chosen theme. Highly topical. Because after a period in which cooperation was seen as the way forward, it would now appear that the opposite tendency is gaining ground. Once again, walls and borders are being thrown up, international treaties revoked, together with even louder calls of my country first. A worrying development, ladies and gentlemen. History offers more than enough examples of what nationalism can lead to. Last week, the populist parties of Europe met in Koblenz in Germany. Their goal to destroy the European Union and revive nationalism. Perhaps another title for this conference might have been The Rebirth of Borders in a Globalizing World, but I'm sure you will discuss this in the coming days or so. The globalizing of trade and economics has, of course, also brought harmful effects with it, and the European Union is also not without its flaws. Every clear-thinking person is in agreement about that. But what we also know is that protectionist politics eventually only lead to less prosperity, and nationalism is a dead-end road. And that is why it's only good that you are here together for the Hague International Model United Nations, because THIMUN stands for international cooperation, friendship and understanding. Here you meet other young people like yourselves from different countries and cultures. Here you listen to one another's arguments and then how to reach agreement. That is real democracy, not at one moment you are going to vote, once in the 3, 4, 5, 6 years. It's a process. You are tomorrow's world citizens. Don't fall into the trap of populism and nationalism. They offer simplistic, ready-made solutions to the huge challenges facing our world today, which also explains their success. But a huge and empty void lies behind the sweeping statements. Now, more than ever, we need to work together to build bridges, to ensure that everything we have built over the last 70 years is not swept away. It is about your future. Fortunately, we are not alone. And I'm sure that even though we live in an age of so-called alternative facts, reason will ultimately prevail. I wish you every success over the next few days and an enjoyable time in The Hague. There is a lot at stake. Thank you.
A definition of ethics might be, at its simplest, a system of moral principles that affect how people behave and make decisions. Ethics is concerned with what is good for both individuals and society. It sounds simple, but the issues on your agenda are perhaps not so clear-cut. The question is, who decides? The UN works to a general set of ethical beliefs written into its charter. This is an abstract idea, and this week you're working on practical solutions. How is this relevant to you? How are you to proceed this week? Given that you represent many and varied views, how can you act ethically? I'd suggest that there are a number of considerations. 1. Pay attention to the UN Charter, and particularly to what it was set up to achieve, which we have just heard something about. 2. Listen to and recognise other people's cultural and political viewpoint, even if it doesn't coincide with the views of your adopted country, or indeed your own views. 3. Think about whether you're following the rules of procedure in a constructive way, or are you just trying to score points? Amend, don't destroy. Amending is not watering down, it's creating strength. And 4, aim for consensus. In the context of international relations, success is not about steamrolling your resolution through, but of producing a proposition that as many people as possible can agree to. And this is perhaps your opportunity to break out of old patterns and to seek innovative and ethical solutions to some of the major issues you will be discussing. There's an old saying, much used by some politicians and commentators, which is, politics is the art of the possible. The optimist, and that's me, says, politics is the art of making the impossible happen. So let's do it. Good luck.
Thank you, Ms. Loughlin, for those valuable words. It is now my pleasure to announce the International Choir from the British School in the Netherlands and the International School of The Hague. They will be performing Azika Tali. Let's welcome them with a warm round of applause. It is now my great pleasure to announce our keynote speaker, Mr. Lil van Gemert, Deputy Director of Operations at Europol. Mr. van Gemert, you now have the floor.
Everybody, it's an honor to be amongst you today at this event. It's inspiring and hopeful to be here and also to make a contribution to the things that you will be doing this week. Because amongst you there will be the leaders of the near future, in the future. I called my presentation for you today, Think Big. Well, being at a conference of the UN and with a global audience more or less, it's a good thing to think big. But I mean something different, and I will try to explain it towards you during my presentation. At the end, I hope it's clear what I mean with thinking big. About disappearing borders. Disappearing borders for migration, for cyber, and for terrorism. Because if you look at this moment, borders are not an issue anymore. The speed, the distance, and the volume of the way that we exchange information, but also that crime is developing, strongly increasing. As it goes for migration, people are willing to cross. They come from Syria and other regions of the world, and they're traveling. 1 million in the European Union last year, and if you look at the global scale, it's many millions more that are on the run, more or less, and crossing borders all the time. I think the European Union had a difficulty with explaining and also accepting that benefits from the Schengen area also means an easy crossing of borders within our countries. On cyber, the same. All of you will experience the possibility of exchanging information towards each other in the reach that you can have, in the volume and the speed is, well, changing every year, every day more or less, and it's increasing. So also in this field, borders are more or less disappearing. And then finally in terrorism. I think we all seen the change in terrorism. Terrorism from a national perspective, like ITA or the IRA, looking at the situation in a certain country, towards global terrorism and trying to, well, combat a way of living. And it's there, every moment of the day, in your pockets if you want, because it's possible for them to reach out by all kinds of social media, and we'll try to explain a little bit later how this is really working. Coming to the conclusion, I called my presentation Think Big. It's not about only thinking global, it's about being brave, being innovative, and work together, grouped in a way. And actually, I think this is the best example, all of you being here for this week, trying to address those problems that probably grown-ups are not able at this moment to solve, and come up with, hopefully, also some nice solution. So I will leave you with a few quotes that more or less also get into this topic, in explaining that it's really needed that you have brilliant thinking, being aware that you could also think out of the box, be more courage and brave. That's even more wanted in times of this. And also, well, being open and thinking out of the box is something I think that works best when you're really open-minded. So, well, you have a lot of work ahead of you. I think the future is yours also. If you are able to think a little bit brave, innovative and good, I'm sure you will be successful. Well, thank you for your attention and wish you all the best in the upcoming. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Excellencies, esteemed student officers, distinguished guests and MUN directors, honorable delegates, and valued admins. I would like to wish you a warm welcome to this year's annual THIMUN conference. For most of my generation, brought up in a post-Cold War era, the concept of borders has signified something different than to our elders. In 1945, there were 2 walls in the world. After the Cold War, there were 15 walls in the world, and currently, there are over 45. We bring ourselves to question whether borders are bureaucratic impediments or a necessity like water. Nonetheless, together we observe our rapidly changing current reality. The use of borders has radically adapted itself with the evolution of globalization. Globalization can be defined as the integration of people and nations, and in the last few years, the evolution of technology has played a significant role. Now we desire change, and we desire for change to be fast-paced. And globalization brings across both good and bad influences to borders. Yet what I value the most is the increased inability for dialogue between youth like us, so that I, as a young woman from both Spain and Colombia, can speak in the Netherlands to an audience made up of individuals from all around the world. Perhaps borders are innately neither good nor bad, but borders are a complex issue that can only be resolved through dialogue. Globalization raises various questions. One is how to approach the current contradiction between globalization that urges for an open platform of communication, travels and exchanges, and the current rise of nationalism, not only based on racist rhetoric, but genuine labor concerns, along with a strong will to close borders in order to maintain national cultural identity. If the complexity of this issue hasn't been illustrated, I hope that I have established the contemporary relevance of this topic to everyone here. Perhaps, yes, it is impossible for me to tell you whether borders are right nor wrong. However, this will be a speech that champions the necessity for dialogue in order to ensure that regardless of what side of a border you stand on, our sense of humanity should prevail. Our human decency should be maintained. Our core human rights must be honored. THIMUN gives people the opportunity to engage with individuals from different parts of the world, to develop together our sense of unity. But as today's youth, let us not forget the reality that not everyone can engage in dialogue, that borders exist even between modern nations too. So borders can be silence. But let there not be silence in your dialogue. Instead, let there be negotiation, and let there be difficult questions asked among yourselves. Although this is a difficult, fast-paced topic, do not let yourself be frightened by its scope or by its scope, but be engaged, be motivated, be the change. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Madam Secretary-General, for that thought-provoking speech. It is now my great honour to declare the 49th annual session of the Hague International Model United Nations officially open.